want to talk to you this session on the subject, reflections of a leader. Now let me just take, 2 minutes to kind of go a little bit into my background and kind of help you understand the journey that I'm now on. It's been a good journey. I was privileged to grow up in a leader's home. Boy, there's an advantage. My dad was a wonderful leader and is still living and is still a great, great man of God. But as I grew up, I was around a leader. My father was a wonderful pastor, built a church in 3 years from 200 to over 900 back in the 50s, before church growth was any kind of big deal like it is today. He planted 40 churches in his lifetime. He was a president of a college for 17 years. So I was privileged to grow up as a leader. And I assumed leadership roles as a kid. I was the captain of my basketball team in high school. I was student body president of my college class and of the college I attended. And so leadership's always been a little bit of my life. What I'm going to do in a few moments is I'm going to just share with you some reflections that I've had as a leader that will become principles, hopefully, in your life. Since 1975, as a young kid in my still in late to middle 20s, I had a church over 1,000. And from the time of being 27 on, I had a large church. Since 1980, I have been teaching leadership. Literally, on July 4th, 1976, on our 200th birthday of America, while I was speaking to about 5,000 people, we had a big outdoor rally our church kind of sponsored on the 200th birthday of America. While I was teaching and preaching that day in an outdoor rally for about 5,000 people, I was still in my 20s at that time. God spoke very directly to me and said, "John, I'm going to give you a ministry with pastors." Never asked for it, never thought of it, never entered my mind. Told Margaret on the way home, I said, "Honey, let me tell you what happened." She said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "Nothing." She said, "What do you mean, nothing?" I said, "Can I tell you something? If this is really of God, it'll all come to pass. I don't need to knock any doors down. I don't need to work my way into something." You know, a long time ago, I quit taking a crowbar with me when I tried to go open doors. Hey, if it's of God, it'll open. If it's not of God, the last thing I need to do is use a crowbar on that door anyway. And so, since 1980, I've been teaching leadership in conferences like this. I don't know how many thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands at this point, the people that I've taught leadership to, and the tapes. But leadership has been my life, and for many, many years. And since 1983, I have always led at least 2 organizations at a time, and up to as many as 5 organizations where I've led and been head of all at the same time. So I understand leadership, and it's been my life. But in the last 18 months of my life, I've gone through a major, what I call, reflection time. It's been a good time in my life. It's been a time where I've stopped long enough to think, consider, ponder, pray, reflect. And in those 18 months, I suppose the reflection time is because of a couple of reasons. One is, as you know, I had a change in ministry and left the local church as a pastor to do this national work, especially in the area of leadership. So I changed after 26 years of pastoring. I changed and went into this and went into what I call multiplication instead of addition. And then my age, I'm almost 50, and again, I really want to run a good race, and I want to be able to wrap it up well. And if I'm going to wrap it up well, I want to make sure in the halftime of my life that I'm centered in the way that I need to be centered. There have been basically 3 results of my reflection time, and I want to share those with you in the beginning of this lesson. First of all, over time, the important and the unimportant separate. They don't do it in an instant, and they don't do it in an event, but I want to tell you, over time, time does something for us that there is no other entity that will bring into our lives that can do the same. Time allows the unimportant and the important to separate. For example, when I resigned and left Skyline, I made a commitment that for 1 year I would not make any more major decisions, that I would just sit and think and reflect again and pray and meditate and get centered the way that I want to. The second result of my reflection time for the last 18 months is that over time, the significance of important leadership principles becomes clear. What I basically am able to do over time of reflection is the things that have really made the difference in leadership again separate from the things that are important in leadership but not as important. And I'm able to look back and say, that made the difference. It was that principle that took me to another level. And the third result of reflection time is over time, the application of important principles becomes essential. And my goal is in our hour plus together here in this lesson is to cover all three of these parts of reflection. I love the little thought I have here right in your notes. If only we could have second thoughts first. The church's success of yesterday are killing us today. In times of great successes, leaders feel little need to be reflective. Rather, the impetus is to go, go, go. But to go, 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 when the congregation is headed in the wrong direction, will only get it there faster. Let me just stop here for a moment, and then I'm going to give you the reflections I have as a leader. The greatest enemy that you and I will ever have as a leader is not our failures, but our successes. Beware of success. Here's why. Very simple. We all want it, we all love it, and when we achieve it, there's a tendency for us to want to dwell there. Isn't that right? We say, oh, wow, I've got this down. I now know how to lead a church. I know how to run an organization. I've got this thing down. Well, what happens is that no matter what we're doing, if it's successful, it's only a matter of time till it will become unsuccessful if we don't change. And now there's a flip to that side, and it's wonderful. And no matter how bad we are and how bad the failure is, if we stay there for a while, we'll pull out of that too. But the process of time and change causes us at times to, if we're not careful, to stay where we are and not progress the way we need to progress. A book, let me share with you, I think, 2 watershed books over the last, 25 years in the church for pastors and for church growth. Back in 1970, Elmer Towns wrote a book. He's a wonderful friend of mine, The 10 Largest Sunday Schools. And what it did for young pastors at that time for me is it helped us to understand that you can grow a church, and it's wonderful to grow a church, and it showed us churches that were growing and put out a model, and it's the first kind of stimulating, growing church growth book that I ever read. Now, what's interesting about that book on the 10 largest Sunday schools, if you would pick it up today and look at it, I would tell you right now that most of those churches you've never even heard of. What was great 25 years ago is not even known today. You will find none of those churches that would probably have a great Sunday school today. None of those 10. Many of them you never even know about. In fact, I was one day with Elmer Towns. It was a few years ago. We were getting ready to go down to watch the Masters tournament in Augusta, and we were driving. I had just done a leadership conference in South Carolina somewhere. I think it was in Columbia. And we were driving down to watch the Masters tournament the next day, and I brought his book with me. And as we were going down, we got into one of the most interesting discussions. I said, E.T., let me tell you something. This book has helped me, influenced me. I said, look at these churches in here you got in here. And I started reading them. I said, you don't even know about this. This is a goner. This one's dead. This one should be, will be. And I mean, they weren't vibrant churches. And then I said, the reason I brought that up is why are they not vibrant churches today? Well, it's very simple. I can tell you exactly why. They did something well, got on that horse, rode it until the sucker died. Now, let me give you a leadership principle. It's not one of the 10, so it's not one of my greater ones, but it's one that just came to my mind. It's a very simple principle. When the horse is dead, dismount. Okay? Okay. Now, reflections of a leader. Number one. Number one, and I don't have them in order of importance. I'm just going to give you some reflections. Leading others takes courage. Knowing the right decision is easy. Making the right decision is hard. I promise you, in decision making, in leadership, leadership means courage, and the moment that you stick your neck out, almost all decision making, I love it when people say, well, could you do an Enjoy Life Club on decision making? I'd be glad to do a tape on decision making. It's not a problem. The problem is never making the decision. You already know the decision. And 9 out of 10 times, you know the decision. The issue is not knowledge. The issue is guts. In fact, that's where leadership comes in. Leaders make the gutty decisions. They understand that the best decision is not always popular. They understand that their goal is not to make a palatable decision. They've got to sometimes make a decision that's a tough decision. Now, this was very hard on me. I'm giving you reflections that I have learned, and I can tell you right now, I say it very easily today, but I'm telling you, this was the first hard lesson I went through, because I grew up in a home that was loving, an unconditionally loving home. I grew up in a home where, I hate to admit it, but it was just Johnny can do no wrong. Now, Johnny did a lot of wrong, and he was ordered, he got paddled, so it wasn't that. But I mean, it was affirming, it was loving, and it was, yes, you can. And I went to my first church. And met my first dysfunctional people. And I met people that didn't love me like Mom and Dad loved me, and didn't believe in me like Mom and Dad believed in me. And I found out real quick that if I was going to lead, I wasn't going to make everybody happy. And it was going to take some courage. And for a while, I decided not to lead. I decided to relate well, love well, make everybody happy, and just hang around and get the momentum going. And boy, and it worked for a while, but there comes a time in your life and in the life of your organization where you got to make a tough decision. And it's at that moment you say, okay, what am I going to do? I remember my first vote in my first church. We were congregational. They voted every year on the pastor. First vote, 31 yes, 1 no, 1 abstained. I called my dad. I said, Dad, should I stay? Well, he said, what was the vote? I said, well, 31 yes, 1 no, 1 abstained. We know that abstained is a no. I mean, if they don't love you enough to put a yes on the ballot. I said, should I stay? I've got one person who says no. My dad is cracking up. He's laughing. He said, John, stay. Believe me, it's the best vote you'll ever get. It's obvious to me you're doing absolutely nothing in that church. It's obvious to me you're a wimp. It's obvious to me you haven't even stirred anything up yet. There were 31 yeses. Good Lord, son, what are you doing? Get on the ball. Kick butt, patootie, something. I thought I was in trouble. I had one. In fact, for the next 6 months, you know what I did? Every Sunday I went up and got behind the pulpit. And I looked. All right, where is that no vote? You see, in my first church, I had to answer a question that I had to ask, and that is, do I want to help people or make them happy? Ask the question. Can I tell you something? Grow up. If you're going to need everybody's approval, and you're going to need everybody's affirmation, and you're going to need everybody saying, attaboy, go get them, you're wonderful, we think you're best that has ever been here, you're the most wonderful pastor. If you need that, go get a job. You know, the significance of this first reflection is that I learned this lesson early, and I'm very glad, because the result is decision-making has given me optimal results. I promise you, I learned the lesson in my first church. I learned it well. And never since that time have I been a poll taker, a census taker, a burper of the people. I can make a tough decision, smile, love them, look them in the eye, and go home and sleep like a baby. I remember when I came to Skyline in 1981. When I was coming to the church, I went and interviewed all the staff that was there, and I fired a third of them before I got there. Basically, I told the board that I was going to have, they were not a good staff. In fact, that's the reason the senior pastor was having to leave. He didn't have good people around me. Tomorrow, I will teach you the greatest leadership principle I've ever learned, and that is those closest to me determine the level of my success. Absolutely. So here I am, and so I told the board that I would do it in a process. I would fire a third of them the first year, or before I got there, a third of them after the first year, and the last third after the second year. So I would shift them out. And I remember firing the most beloved one in the bunch. What wonderful guy. By the way, a marvelous, marvelous Christian man. And kind of took care of the older people. And I let him go. And I'll never forget, on one of my visits before I ever took the church, because I was flying back and forth for 3 months with the pastor that was there, and before I took over at Skyline. And so I would go back, and one of my visits going back before I literally became the official pastor, but I'd already fired a third of the staff. I remember Chuck Edwards, one of the pastors on staff, came and brought me a petition. And said, John, he said, I got this petition that the people have signed demanding that one of the staff members you let go, that you reconsider. And he started handing it to me. I said, I don't want that. He said, what do you mean? The people have signed it. I said, I don't want it. In fact, I said, I'll tell you what you do. Tear it up and throw it in the waste paper basket right now. Then you can go back and tell those people who signed that petition, I never looked at their name, so I won't hold it against them. I remember he gulped real big. Said, you're kidding. I said, no, I'm not kidding at all. And I remember him tearing it up and throwing it in the waste paper basket. And you know what? I never held it against anybody. To this day, I wouldn't know one person signed that petition. It may have been my mother. Who knows? I don't know. But I want to tell you something. Just listen very carefully. Leading takes courage. And I want to tell you something. If you don't have guts, get out. The problem with the church today is we have a bunch of gutless people in leadership positions. Wimpy, whiny, census-taking leaders. It takes courage. I learned a long time ago, leaders want authority, they just don't want to take heat. Never is it one-sided. If you get authority, you got to live with those decisions. Well, the lesson I learned, very simple. It's only at the top, so you better know why you're there. And I just take a moment, and every one of these reflections, I want to encourage you to look at your own leadership and ask yourself a question, and that is, how do you do in the area of courage and leading? And you can rate it from a 1, which is low, to a 5, which is high. This is just for you. It's not for me. It's not for your neighbor. It's not for anyone else. But this will give you a gauge on how you're doing on some of the reflections of a leader. Let me give you the second reflection of a leader. The second reflection is that people become like their leader. I teach what I know, but I reproduce what I am. Boy, that is so key. People become like their leader. I heard Olin Hendricks one time back in 1975 say that if you've been the pastor of your church for 3 years or longer, if you've been the leader of your organization for 3 years or longer, every problem in that organization is your problem. I remember when I heard that in 1975, I had just been at my church for a little bit over 2 years. I thought, that is a wonderful statement. After being there 3 years, I thought, I think I need to reflect on this a little bit more. Here's what I'm saying. It's very simple. When you stand before your people, you're looking literally in a mirror. If the people in your congregation have a bad attitude, I want to tell you something. It's because you have one. I'm talking about the majority. I'm not talking about one or two people in there. I'm talking about when the tenor of our congregation is, if your people don't have faith, it's because you don't have faith. It's literally, you're looking in a mirror. And when you think about what's leadership? Leadership is what? Talk to me. Leadership is what? Thank you very much. If leadership is influence, then if you're the leader, you'll influence your people. You say, well, thank God, I've been at my church 20 years, and nobody in my church is like me. You're not the leader. Let me go find Claude or Ralph. Because people become like their leader. So therefore, in 1981, when I came to Skyline, I was blessed with an incredible, unbelievable, loving congregation, because for 27 years, they had a lover for a pastor who was a man of unity, who was a man of care, who was a man who unconditionally loved the people. And when I walked into this church, I inherited an unbelievable, loving congregation. They were like their leader. And when Jim Garlow, a year ago, last July, came to Skyline, he inherited a church full of leaders. Not one, not two, not 20, not 50, not 100, hundreds. He inherited a church of hundreds of leaders, at least 600. Trained leaders, developed leaders. And between the time of him coming and me leaving, they didn't even have a pastor. Some of the best days in the life of the church were those days. I left, the attendance increased. Finances went up. People said, you know, he should have left earlier. Can I say something? It's no compliment to your ministry when you leave, everything falls apart. All you've proven is you're a lousy leader. Now, why did Jim Garlow inherit hundreds of leaders? It's very simple, because that's what I am. I'm a leader. That's all my life. It's my passion in life. So what am I doing? I'm running through that church, developing leaders. And I got Cheryl and Bill and Dan and everybody else helping me, and they're developing leaders. And we got leaders that they developed that I didn't develop, but boy, they know me because they know them. And it's kind of the influence thing going right down through the church. I mean, we just got a whole bunch of leaders. Why? Because the people become like their leader. Now, the significance of that is, and it's in your notes, I quit looking for excuses when continuous problems arose, and I started looking at myself. What I'm about to teach you is absolutely powerful, so listen carefully. If you have continuous problems where you minister, where you lead, you are a carrier of that problem. I'm not talking about occasional things. But when the same problem keeps cropping up, and for some pastors, it crops up in every church they pastor. They have the gift of carrying the problems. If the same problem keeps cropping up, I promise you it's your problem. And when the day that I understood that the people become like the leader, the moment that that sunk into my life, that my people are like me, and what I am, they become, that they are a shadow of me. The moment I understood that my people were like me, when I didn't like my people, I had to stop and say, what's wrong with me? It changed the focus, and it took it off of them and it put it on me. I believe that with all my heart. Like begets like. Bill, you've taught me that principle for years. Like begets like. Your organization is nothing more than what you are. The values of your people are your values. The goals of your people are your goals. The motives of your people are your motives. Okay. The lesson I learned is the organization is the lengthened shadow of a leader, and the application, take a moment, rate your own influence in leadership from a 1 to a 5. Third lesson that I've learned as I reflect about leadership. The third lesson is that hurting people hurt people. The people that hurt you in the church are the people that are the hurting people. In other words, and I have it in your notes, problem people have problems in their own life and many times will cause problems in your life. I can remember going to Faith Memorial in Lancaster, Ohio, and I arrived and I realized there was a guy on the fourth row. He sat right back here in the fourth row in the auditorium, and he didn't like me. His name was Bill. I mean, when I say didn't like me, he didn't like me. He didn't like me from the day I arrived. He just didn't like me. And I thought, man, why doesn't he like me? So I did some research on Bill and talked to him. I found out that in 1954, Bill was on the church board and had a bad experience with a pastor and resigned and stomped out of the board meeting. And from 1954, Bill has hated pastors. It's his spiritual gift. It's his calling. I mean, he hated the pastor before me, hated the pastor before me, and he really hated the pastor before the pastor was before me, because he was the guy that he had the problem with. And so therefore, when I came to town, he hated me. I mean, when I say he hated me, he hated me. Hated my guts. I'd sit down, talk to him. He'd just say, I don't like you. I'd say, man, my wife likes me. My mama likes me. Well, I don't like you. You don't like me. He would sit during the service with his arms crossed the whole time. Here was his posture. He'd sit right there, that fourth row, every Sunday, with a tape recorder on his lap, taping my message. Now, we taped my messages, but he didn't trust our tapes. So he taped his own. Taped his own, literally went home on Sunday afternoon when most people take naps, walked with the family, literally would take that tape and transcribe it on paper and circle every mistake I made in that message. And I was a young preacher, and he had a lot of circles. If I misquoted a verse or if I gave the wrong scripture reference, he looked up every one of them, quote and say, you need to do more study here. I wish you would come to the pulpit prepared. My grammar would be wrong. And every Tuesday morning, watch this, for 6 years, I got a letter from Bill. I called them love letters. Had a big folder, just file of love letters from Bill. He'd circle everything and he'd give it to me. Hated my guts. Hated, what he really hated was every Sunday night, I would always make it a purpose to go shake his hand first. I'd go right back there and I'd shake it. Of course, he always has hands folded, so I'd have to unfold his hand, arms. And I would literally, come up here, let me show him how to do this. Come up right here, just quickly. Just stand here and fold your arms. If I've done this once, I've done this 500 times. I'm gifted at it anymore. I would say, I'd unfold his arms, and I'd say, Bill, man, it's good to see you tonight. Thanks for coming. I'd shake his wife's hand and his two girls' hands. Thanks a lot, Mike. I'd unfold it. He never volunteered to unfold his arms. Every once in a while, I'd feel real loving, and I'd hug him. Did you ever hug a guy that has his arms folded? He wouldn't unfold them. I'd hug him, and he'd be like this. Hated my guts. 7 years is like that. 7 years. I'll never forget, one Sunday he came forward. I wasn't preaching on relationships or anything. I wasn't even thinking about him. By this time, it just Bill's there. He came forward, just wept, asked my forgiveness. I loved him, forgave him. He said, John, you've killed me with kindness. In fact, I'll tell you what, for the last year that I was there, he became one of the most wonderful, wonderful supporters. In fact, when I left, the next pastor that followed me, he became one of the chief supporters of the next pastor. I thought, boy, isn't that neat? The guy that when I came hated my guts, he loves the next guy. I mean, that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. But that's where I learned hurting people hurt people. And I want to tell you something. There are some hurting people out there, and I want to tell you what, they don't aim to hurt you. Don't even take it personal. They just hurt you. Don't get all shook up. Don't take everything personal. I told somebody one time, I said, I don't have any enemies. They said, what do you mean you don't have any enemies? Don't you have people who don't like you? I said, yeah, but they're not my enemies. They just have bad taste. Hug them on the way out. They're hurting. Just kill them with kindness. When somebody leaves the church, I always bring them in and want to talk to them. Say, look, if I did something wrong, I'm sorry. Hey, if you're going to go, God bless you. I just want you to know when I see you down the supermarket and down the street, I want to wave to you, give you a hug. You're my friend. You know, a lot of people, they leave the church and there's bad feelings, and you go down to the supermarket and you see an ex-member and you hide behind the vegetables. Come on now, talk to me. You know this is the truth. Hurting people hurt people. They're always going. They're going to hurt their wife. They're going to hurt their kids. They hurt anybody. I mean, it's what they're hurting. And if you carry this stuff personal, I promise you in leadership, you're in trouble. You're going to be in a heap of trouble, because every time somebody is hurting in your church and they snap at you or holler at you, you're going to take it personal. You're going to wimp and whine around all your life. Look beyond what they say. Look beyond what they do. Just say, hey, they're just hurting. It's okay. Now, the significance of this is that once I learned this lesson, it was easier for me to turn the other cheek. So when I have conflict with a person, the first question is not, was the conflict? The first question is, are they a problem person? Are they a hurting person? The lesson I learned was, the higher a hurting person rises within the organization, the more they can hurt you and the organization. Now listen very carefully. Love hurting people. Listen to me. Listen to me. You love hurting people, but you don't let them rise up in your organization. They'll kill you. You love them. You hug them. But don't be stupid. You get a hurting person in a power position in the church, and a whole bunch of people can get hurt with it. Never, here's the way you do this, never allow a hurting person access to hurt your people. Take the shots yourself. Many times I didn't even let my staff take the shots. Just take the shots yourself. But don't put them up in a position where they can hurt others. I'm looking at a situation right now at INJOY where I thought about a person that had been with me for not a long time, but a little bit of time, and I thought about bringing them into the organization. I said, nah, they're hurting. Don't be stupid, John. Well, how you do there? How are you doing? Apply that. Rate the number of hurting people in leadership positions in your church or in your organization. Okay, number 4, reflection number 4. I love doing this. This is fun. Number 4, here we go. My growth determines my people's growth. And our combined growth determines the growth of the organization. No doubt about it. So whatever area you're growing in is what you're going to grow with your people. And so what I've always done is, the significance of this principle is, I've always focused on an area that I'm growing in, and I've always passed it on to my people. I've shared quickly what I'm learning, who's teaching me. Conferences like this, I've got them in and said, here, let's sit down, let's learn together, grow together. Here's what excites me. Many of you came in groups, maybe 2 or 3, up to several. But here's what I'm saying. Tonight, when you have dinner, think about the chemistry. Think of the wonderful time you're going to have together as you discuss what you've learned today, and how's it apply to your organization, how's it apply to your church, how's it apply to your ministry. I mean, this is going to be fun for you. But my growth, personal growth, determines the growth of my organization. We talked already about that quite a bit today. The lesson learned is, never stop growing. Have a plan for your growth, because it's not automatic. And rate your personal growth, rate your people's growth, rate your organization's growth. And by the way, your personal growth should be higher than the other two. But your personal growth should not be a lot higher than the other two. Ought to be a few degrees behind you. The growth of your people, the growth of your organization ought to be a few degrees behind you. Not a lot. If they're a lot behind you, you're not communicating your growth to your people. You're not relating. You're not connecting. Reflection number 5. Leadership functions on the basis of trust. When trust is gone, the leader soon will be. So let's talk about trust for a second. Let's talk about how that affects a leader. By the way, when you follow a leader that was trustworthy, the people that were under that leader that was trustworthy will give you a large amount of trust themselves. When I followed, let me explain. When I followed Pastor Butcher after him being the founding pastor for 27 years, very trustworthy, a man of utmost character, godly, holy man. 27 years, loving those people, doing the best to model for those people what they needed. When I followed Pastor Butcher, the day I walked in, although I was just a kid, I think I was 34 when I went to Skyline. Although I was just a kid, they gave me an inordinate amount of trust. You know why? Not because of anything that I'd ever done. They gave me a lot of trust because the last pastor was trustworthy. So they assumed so was I. Now, just as that's a positive, it could be a negative. If you follow a leader that was not trustworthy, does this make sense? If you follow a leader that was not trustworthy, when you walk in, they won't trust you either. Don't take it personal. Understand, all you're doing is getting the handoff from the last guy, and they put you in the same pot. You may not be in that pot. You're not in that one, but it doesn't matter. How they saw the last leader is how they're going to see you. Now, there are 3 times that a leader receives trust. The first is what I call trust that is given. And this comes quickly and can only be given by a trustworthy previous leader. The example I gave of Pastor Butcher is a perfect example. He literally handed trust off to me. Then there is a trust that is earned. This comes slowly and can only be earned by the present leader based upon integrity. And then there is a third kind of trust, which is another trust that is given. This comes more slowly and is given to the present leader by the people. When what the leader says and what the leader does is consistent, the result is success, just as when what the leader says and what the leader does is inconsistent, the result equals failure. Significance of the trust lesson: the lesson removed any temptation I've ever had to manipulate people. If the people ever sense that you or I are manipulating them, we are in deep weeds. Manipulation, moving people for my advantage. Motivation, moving people for everyone's advantage. The lesson that I learned is character is more important than charisma. How true it is. Okay. Let's take a moment and review. The first reflection of a leader: leading others takes courage. The second reflection: people become like their leader. The third reflection: hurting people hurt people. Number 4, my growth determines my people's growth. Number 5, leadership functions on the basis of trust.
We now continue with part 2 of Reflections of a Leader.
Number 6. People are a leader's only appreciable asset. The only asset that you and I have in our organization that has appreciation potential is people. The day that we build a building, the building begins to decay. Everything that we have depreciates except people. Now, let me say this. If we do not train our people correctly, they also can depreciate in effectiveness. People can depreciate or they can't appreciate, but they're the only asset that we have that has a positive and appreciable characteristic about them. Okay, how to appreciate people. Letter A, a spirit of appreciation. You literally appreciate people by appreciating people. You increase their value by a spirit of appreciation to them. It's wonderful when the people believe in their leader. It is more wonderful when the leader believes in the people. Again, tomorrow I will talk to you about empowering people, and we'll get into that area. Letter B, a spirit of cooperation. People appreciate to the degree of them coming together. The more that they come together and coalesce, the greater they appreciate. The more that they go apart and divide, the less that they appreciate. In fact, what I did is I did a multiplication compared to an addition and showed you what happens. Look what happens when people come together. Let's say that you have 5 people in your organization, and they're all threes right now. And I'm just giving you numbers for teaching, doesn't matter. Those 3 people, those threes that are 5 people, that equal 15. Now, let's say I take them from a 3 to a 4. Now those 5 people that were 3s are now 4s, and now there's an end result in the organization of a 20. I've increased them 25%. That's because I brought them together. But what happens if I do more than bring them in the same building? What happens if I find their gifts and put them together as a team? What happens when a group of people that meet on Sunday become a team? And I take them from 3s to 4. Now all of a sudden we're multiplying. And I've appreciated my congregation 421% because I've got them working together as a team. I've got them multiplying instead of adding. There's tremendous insight there if you'll just sit back and reflect of what happens when you bring people together and get them to connect. Okay, I appreciate people, thirdly, or raise their value when I make a commitment to develop people. I want to make sure you understand what I'm about to say. There are 2 ways to grow your church. Listen carefully. You could either go get more people and bring them in, which is a great way to do it, or you can grow the people you have. If you grow the people you have and take them from a 4 to a 6 or a 4 to a 7, using my earlier illustration as the fact that our leadership level determines our ministry level, if you take your people from a 4 and start growing them as people to a 5, a 6, and a 7, like begets like. If you never develop your people and all they are is 3s, guess who they attract? 3s and 2s. But if you take them from a 3 to a 6 or a 7, they begin to attract 6s and 7s. And all of a sudden you begin to grow your church through the development of your people until you reach another people. Can I tell you what never happens? And I'll talk more about this again in another session. Can I tell you what never happens? The reason that I have such a passion to develop you as a leader is very simple. Watch this. Let's say that you're a 5 as a leader. If you're a 5 right now as a leader, you attract 5s, 4s, 3s, 2s, and 1s. Can I tell you what you don't attract? 9s and 10s. 9s and 10s don't come to your church. 9s or 10s won't be hired into your organization. 5s don't hire 9s and 10s. 5s don't lead 9s and 10s. So one of the reasons why I want to appreciate your value as a leader and get you up is every time I can raise you up a notch, you increase your potential 10% in your organization. If 10 is top, going from a 1 to a 10, every time you go up a notch, you increase the potential of your organization by 10%. Well, the significance of learning this lesson that people are the leader's only appreciable asset is very simple. The significance is the moment that I discovered this truth, I committed my life to develop people. And the lesson I learned is that taking people to a higher level lifts me to a higher level. So you can apply again, how are you developing people? You can scale yourself. Number 7. The 7th reflection of a leader is you can't lead people if you need people. A codependent relationship seldom goes forward. And there are two needs that keep a leader from leading. Two needs that leaders have that keep them from leading. One is the need for everyone's approval. In other words, the need for people coming around saying, "Attaboy, good job, you're doing it." And second, the need for everyone's support. You know, a lot of pastors say, well, not everybody's jumping in and helping with the project. And the key word, by the way, is everyone's. Everyone's approval, everyone's support. That's the key. The codependent relationship is not in the few people that aren't working out well. It's when you got to have them all on board, when you got to have all of their approval, when you got to have everybody saying good things about you. The significance of learning this lesson that you can't lead people if you need people is, I am a steward of others for a period of time. My responsibility is to develop them and prepare them for the next leader. If I could teach you anything about developing an organization, this is what I'd want to teach you. You're only a steward of that organization for a period of time, and your commitment should be, and your responsibility should be, to develop them and prepare them for another leader. Now, this is why all the turmoil, when you asked the question earlier in a Q&A, this is why all the turmoil of change in leadership. The reason there's turmoil is that most leaders don't draw people to the better themselves, they draw people to themselves. Oh, my friends, nothing is more destructive than a leader with a big ego. It's only a matter of time till you destroy yourself and the people in your organization. It's only a matter of time. Is it going to happen this month? I don't know, but it's going to happen. I promise you it's going to happen. If I could get you to see your leadership position as a position that you hold for a period of time, of which your goal is to raise up leaders, of which maybe somebody that you're raising up will take your place. One of your goals should be to be replaced. Cheryl will tell you this, again, being a staff member so many years. When I hired a staff member, one of my first admonitions was for them to work themselves out of a job. I said, work your way out of a job, Cheryl. In fact, here's the way this works. If you work your way out of a job, I'll give you another one. You just go into a department and develop that department and raise up leaders until you're not needed and they've got their own leadership. You back out of there, I'll give you another job. I learned a long time ago, when a person can work themselves out of a job, they deserve another one. Now, I also told them, if you can't work your way out of a job, I'll take away the one you got. Your goal is not to be irreplaceable. First of all, you are irreplaceable. God loves you incredibly and created you for a mission and a job, but in that irreplaceable mission that He gave you, He gave it to you for a period of time, then He wants you to move on. That's the way life is, moving on. Life is moving on. Life is a journey. I'm doing a book that'll come out next year called The Success Journey. And when we were working on the book, the publisher wanted to call it The Journey to Success. I said, no, that's not the book at all. It's not the journey to success. It's not some destination out there, and then if you work hard, one day somewhere under the rainbow you arrive. No. The journey is the success. It's not something you're going to be, it's something that you are. If you're growing and developing right now, you are successful. And in this process, your job and my job should be to be replaced. Raise up people to replace you. Listen, youth pastors, raise up people until they can run the youth group by their own. I can promise you, if you can raise up leaders, you'll get another job. What I also found is that the staff that could do the job well, they always had opportunities to do other jobs. And the staff that couldn't do the job well, they always wanted to know when they're going to get another pay raise. And how much longer could they stay, and could they have an indefinite tenure? And a package. Hello. Just a thought. The lesson I learned is that taking people to a higher, the lesson I learned is if you love people deeply, watch this, you love people deeply, but you hold on to them lightly. Oh. Do you see this? You love them deeply. You hold on to them lightly. After 16 years in one city where I was pastor of a large church, I go to another city, leave all those relationships. Loved every one of them, loved every moment, thank God for them. Let's move on. Now, the good news is I think I have the ability to make some new friends. And I'm going to go roll up my sleeves and develop some new relationships. That's going to be fun. Every once in a while, I run into a pastor who resigned the church but wants to keep going back and seeing the people. Hey, make up your mind. Get a life. Oh, you say, no, I need to go back and do that funeral. No, you don't. If you go back, you ought to be shot. Somebody could do your funeral for free. If you drop dead tomorrow, somebody else will be able to carry on. The reason you're going back is your ego won't let you let go. Now, if you're going to resign the church, it's just a thought, and then I'll move on. It's making some of you very nervous. If you're going to resign a church, leave it. Somebody said, do you think you can live in the same city and resign your church? Of course I can. When I said goodbye, it was goodbye. I don't need those people for my relationships in life to make it one more day. Now, if I want to not let go of the relationships, then I ought to stay with the church. You see, what we want to do is we want to resign the church so we don't have the pressures of the ministry, but we want to keep the friendship so we can have all the cream of it. Just a thought. Don't take me so serious out there. Some of you, paranoia is just growing right now. Relax, mellow out. Hey, and leave that church. Keep your cotton picking hands off of it. Number 8. Admit your failures quickly and humbly. The people already know them, but they will appreciate your spirit. In fact, I found out to get maximum attention, make a big mistake. But to cause maximum damage, fail to admit it. Oh, I could tell you so many of them. Last week, when Bill Hybels and I did the conference at Willow Creek for 3,500 pastors together, we had a whole hour-and-a-half session where we sat on stools, and he started, and I'd go next, or I'd start, and he'd go next, and all we did was tell mistakes we'd made in the ministry. Oh, it was hysterical. I mean, you can't believe all the stupid things I've done. But I want to tell you something, all the stupid things I've done, which is a gift of mine. It may not be your gift. You may be boring. I don't know about you. You may be one of those boring, perfect people. You just do it right. But all the mistakes I've ever made, of all the stupid things that I've ever done, the only mistakes I ever made that were really mistakes, and the only stupid things I ever did that were really stupid, is when I made them and I didn't admit them. I can remember a few years ago, back in the early 90s, late 80s maybe, I made a horrible mistake. In fact, literally in 3 months, I changed the entire Sunday night format. I allowed them to do dancing in the living Christmas tree, which is pretty radical for a holiness church. And boy, we had fun doing that. That was a lot of fun, which was even worse. I mean, when you sin and then enjoy it, it just gets terrible. Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh, this was fun. Oh, wow. You're just supposed to feel guilty about these things. All right. And I let go of a very visible staff member. I did it all in 3 months. I just went boom, boom, boom. I mean, and I'd been there for 10 years. You know what I was basically saying? I've been here for 10 years, and I'm tired of just going through process. I'm just going to make some leadership decisions. I went boom, 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 just like that in 3 months, and it all blew up. I mean, all hell broke loose. You say, you mean all hell broke loose? Yeah, all hell broke loose. It was awful. For the first time in ministry, I had people not trusting me. They were saying, what's this guy doing? And while they're not trusting me, I'm getting ticked. Do you ever get ticked? I see some of you have never done that either, have you, huh? Goose the guy beside you. See if the guy's alive. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm ticked. I'm righteously indignant. That sounds better, doesn't it? If you're Baptist, I was mad. If you're Episcopalian, mad as hell is what I was. In fact, that's why I want to tell them to go. And I mean, I'm ticked, and I'm working on my sermon one day up in the upper room, and it's on Moses and the children of Israel. It's one of those times when Moses was really ticked. And I'm loving, I mean, he's telling God about them, and he's telling them how bad they are, and oh, I'm just writing this sermon, I'm saying, yes, yes, yes. When I got done this sermon, I said, I need to preach this immediately. I mean, it was on Thursday, but I wanted to call him and say, come now. I have a message burning on my heart that cannot wait. All I'm hoping for on Sunday is for the ground to open up and swallow those people up. If we could just have a good Old Testament demonstration of the wrath of God. I hadn't finished that message 10 minutes. I mean, I'm looking at it and saying, oh, this is, I can hardly wait to preach it. Oh, this is good. God said, John, the message isn't for the people. It's for you. You're the problem. I went from wanting to preach that message to saying, you know, this will wait for a while. God said, no, it won't wait. You preach it Sunday morning just the way you prepared it. Hot. Preach it hot. Rant and rave and spit a little. Hot. And when you get done preaching that message, say, oh, folks, before I let you go, the message wasn't for you and your complaining attitude. It was for me. And the next Sunday morning was one of the most humbling things I've ever did. I preached that message just the way I prepared it. And then I said, by the way, it's not for you, it was for me. I said, I got a problem. I'm ticked at you. I'm mad. I've wanted, today, the ultimate was for the ground to swallow you up. Just a thought. And I said, the problem is the ground needs to swallow me up. I'm the problem. The guy who wrote The Winning Attitude has a stinking attitude. And I need you to forgive me. I remember I wept with those people. I asked them to forgive me. I asked them to pray over me. I went to my own altar. Did you ever do that? It's very healthy. Some of you will never have revival in your church until you go to your altar first. Of the 10 Old Testament revivals, every one of them began with a leader. And I asked them to forgive me, and they prayed for me, and they wept, and I'll never forget, at the end of that day, they were on their feet, and they were clapping, and they were cheering, and I'm standing up here, and I'm being bathed in all this unconditional love of these people saying, you are a rotten pastor, got a stinking attitude, you do deserve the ground to swallow you up, you do deserve hell, but it's okay, we love you. And in that day, they're on their feet clapping and cheering, and I'm saying to myself, I watched them. I literally watched a problem for 6 months be cleared up in 60 minutes. The moment I asked forgiveness. I'm telling you, it's a lesson I learned. There are some of you, you have been riding over issues in your church that you've been riding over way too long, and you need to quit playing the game and go back and say, folks, let me tell you something. This is the way it is, and here's where I am, and here's the problem, and I want you to forgive me. The significance of this reflection is this. I wrongly assumed that my leadership success would allow me to take leadership shortcuts. I assumed that since I'd been a good leader for 10 years, I could start taking shortcuts in leadership and making decisions without processing people and start just flipping out and moving on. And all of a sudden I realized no matter how long you've been there, you still got to do it right. The lesson I learned is leadership to be respected must be earned daily. Well, how we do? Are we quickly admitting mistakes and asking forgiveness? Number 9, reflection number 9. Respect is vital to the leader. Without it, without respect, no one follows. Title or position will not help, and with it, everyone follows, and title and position are not needed. If you've got respect, you don't need a title. If you don't have respect, God can't help you. Let's talk about respect for a second. I did an Enjoy Life Club tape about a year ago called RESPECT, Tell Me What You Think of Me. I didn't sing it, I just did it. And I talked about respect and how that it's so key in a leader's life. And there are basically three essentials for respect. One is relationships. People respect you because they love you. Two is character. They respect you because they admire you. And three is success. And because of that, they will follow you. And the significance of this lesson that I have learned in my life, it's very key. The significance of this lesson is, and I want you to see it, leadership paraphernalia became unimportant to me. The moment you understand that respect is key, all the stuff that is given to a leader becomes totally unimportant. Where your office is, what your title is, where you are on some job description chart and some organizational chart, all that stuff becomes unimportant. You know why? Because you've got the respect. All the other stuff doesn't become important to you. Now, for those who don't have that respect, they want all those perks. The people at Skyline just called me John, and it was so funny because I'd have a pastor go across campus with me and somebody would ask me a question and we'd be done. He'd say, "Did you hear what they called you?" "No, what did they call me?" "Well, they called you John." "Mm-hmm. That's my name." "Well, they didn't call you Reverend. They didn't call you Doctor. They didn't call you Pastor. They just called you John." That's my name. God, can I tell you something? When I was born, came out of Mama's womb, she didn't say, "Oh, Dr. Maxwell." Feeling a little ornery this afternoon, aren't I? Let me tell you something. It doesn't matter. I was with Hybels last week, and we were rocking all over Willow Creek. I never heard anybody call him pastor, never heard anybody call him reverend, never heard anybody call him doctor. "Hey, Bill! Hey, John!" I answered to John. Somebody asked Margaret one time at a conference, says, "Oh, what does John do when he comes home?" She said, "Well, he takes out the garbage. He does all the stuff most people do." I want to tell you something. You get into titles and you get into role playing, if you're not careful, you'll get a preacher's voice. Don't egg me on. I'm incorrigible already. I mean, you'll get behind the pulpit and, "Oh, how art thou?" I mean, your voice just dropped 2 octaves. I mean, when you're out here, it's, "Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Everything going good?" "How art thou? God bless you." And by the way, when you preach, his name is not God. There's not an A on the end of that name. Sometime I'm going to write a book on God has a baritone voice. We just think you got to be God or you got to go low. Wouldn't it be funny if he's an Irish tenor? Wouldn't it be funny when we get to heaven, he's going to say, "Come on in. Come on, Mabel, let's get out of here." Huh? Come on now. Quit role playing. Quit taking yourself seriously. Laugh at yourself. Your people are laughing at you. Hey, here's a thought. Quit preaching and start communicating. Look them in the eye, talk to them, relate with them. I love these preachers. Get behind the pulpit and scream. They kind of look at the clock and cock their head and scream. I mean, I want to just go to the front pew and take my clothes off to see if he notices. I mean, what do? You go home and you cock your head and you scream at your wife and you scream. I mean, I'm telling you, if you're wounded, just shoot that dog. You know, you ought to have a guy on the front row when the preacher gets in that mood. Bang! Next. Quit role playing. Can I tell you something? If you role play in church, you'll role play out of church. Yeah, you will. If you can put on a certain air to give a certain image to a certain group of people for a certain time, you'll do that somewhere else. And I contend to you that not all but many of the moral problems are based on preachers that have role played. Just be who you are. Be the best who you are, but be who you are. Don't try to be anyone else. God made you unique, and the moment you get out of that uniqueness, you're no longer who He made you. Make sense? Well, one more reflection. The most challenging and rewarding work is leading leaders. I believe it with all of my heart. I believe that followers are easy. In fact, 100% of the leaders do this because that's how you're a leader. But I think leaders are difficult. And I think a very small percentage of leaders ever lead or develop leaders. And I think there are 4 reasons, although tomorrow morning I'm going to talk to you about the difference between leaders who develop leaders and leaders who develop followers. But here's what I think. I think leaders are hard to find. Think about it. Leaders don't flock. The number one scarcity in any organization is leadership. Isn't that true? In the marketplace, you know what the number one scarcity is? Leadership. In education, the number one scarcity is leadership. I had a fellow see me during the break who used to work at Walmart, entered the ministry. He said, John, I entered the ministry because he said, I saw this great leadership vacuum in the church. Turkeys gather, eagles soar. Not too many eagles soar into the church. There's a scarcity of leadership. So leading leaders are hard. It's hard because they're hard to find. I mean, they're just not an overabundance of leaders. So, by the way, that's why you need to develop them. If you wait to find leaders, you won't find many. You might as well go home and develop some. They see somebody like Bill Klassen, my prayer partner, Bill, they say, well, shoot, John's lucky. He's got Moses praying for him. You got a bill in your church. Just got to go find them. Hey, there's gold in them thar pews. Yeah. Well, leaders, it's hard to lead leaders because they're hard to not only find, but they're hard to gather. Once you find them, they just don't gather well, do they? The best way I can describe leading leaders is kind of like herding cats. You know what I mean? You don't herd them. Cats don't herd. Leaders don't. They usually have their own agenda. They have their own thoughts. Leaders are thirdly hard to unite. They're hard to unite. They're hard to get them to go for a common goal, again, because they have their own agenda. I remember one time I took a group of pastors to the Holy Land. Oh, it was awful. They were all wanting to teach. And so since they found they couldn't teach everybody, they'd find one sucker a little bit less of a leader, and they'd pull him over to the side. They'd tell him what really happened there on the mountain. They're not easy to unite. And I'll tell you something else about leaders. They're not only hard to find, hard to gather, and hard to unite, hey, they're hard to keep. Leaders leave. If they don't like the way the organization's going, they're out of here. Are we all right out here? See, you don't like to hear this. I know you don't like to hear this, but I'm just your friend. My name's Sean. I'm a communicator. Leaders leave. Leaders don't have a lot of patience, and when they don't like the way it's going, they'll go somewhere else. And they don't ask you. Let's think about it for a moment. Followers stay. Leaders lead. Well, they're hard to find. They're difficult to gather. They're hard to unite. And they're hard to keep. By the way, that's why I always have so much leadership resources, so you can give it into the leader's life, so you can have potential of keeping them. Put an Enjoy Life Club in the hands of a leader, and they'll appreciate the resource. Well, the significance on this lesson that I've learned is that 10% of the leaders who develop leaders receive 100% greater return. And the lesson that I've learned is that shortcuts don't pay off in the long run. So how do you do as far as spending your time with leaders? I want to wrap this up with just taking a moment and sharing with you my lifetime ministry goals. My goal is very simple. It's to add value to leaders. I'll spend all of the rest of my life adding value to leaders. When I die, I will die adding value to leaders. That's where the rest of my life is going to be. And so some time back, I wrote down what my leadership goals would be as far as my own personal ministry goals. I want to influence 10 people to be a better leader than me. Let me help you just a moment understand that. I want to come across leaders that are already better leaders than me. And I want to take them to a higher level. I asked God when I resigned Skyline to give me 10 people that were better leaders, more influential leaders than me in America, and allow me just to come alongside of them and add value to them. And it's been awesome. So far, God's given me 6. And I'm pouring my life into them, going to help them anyway, serve them, wash their feet, do whatever I can to help get those leaders to a higher level. They're bigger, they're faster, they're better than me. All I want to do is bless them and take them to another level. I want to influence 100 people to come alongside me and help me lead through INJOY and ISS. And then I want to influence 1,000 pastors to build churches of 1,000 or more. That's why we do Challenge 1,000 now across the country. We had almost 1,000 pastors in Atlanta from 45 states to spend 2 days just helping them get through the 1,000 barrier. I want to influence 10,000 people to enter full-time Christian ministry. I want to influence 100,000 pastors to be better leaders. I want to influence 1 million people to be prayer partners with their pastors. I just had a new book released on prayer, which basically is for pastors to take home to their laymen to involve them in prayer partner ministry. And I want to influence 10 million people by equipping churches and by equipping people to do ministry within the church. That's my goal. Say, John, are you going to make it? Nah, I'll make some. I'll miss some. But it's my goal. I'm going to press on. Going to do everything I can to get there. I'm going to need the help of other people. It's bigger than me, but it's not bigger than God. Amen.